Hello and welcome to today's episode of pianoTV. I am Allysia, your host, and today we are going to talk about dominant 7th chords. Dominant 7th chords first appear if you're doing the Royal Conservatory of Music stuff at a grade 5 level, which is why I've waited till now to bring them up. You don't even have to do them if you're doing like ABRSM exams, but dominant 7th chords are one of those things that seem kind of complicated, but they're really not. So I wanted to break it down. Now, I say that they're not complicated in theory, I don't think. Maybe I'm just like, I don't know, numbed to the difficulty of theory at this point. But they are kind of difficult to play, like if you've never done 4-note chords before. So we will spend a bit of time on the keyboard. I'll show you how to play them. I'll explain to you how to figure them out. And yeah, without further ado, let's get started. What are dominant 7th chords? Okay, well, let's back up a moment and figure out what dominant chords are. The word dominant refers to a certain Roman numeral, the V or the 5. Another word you might have heard before, the tonic, is the Roman numeral I, which is the number 1. These Roman numerals are referring to scale degrees. So what I mean by that is if your piece is in the key of C, the tonic is C, because it's the first note of the C scale. And then if we keep going up the C scale, C, D, E, F, G, the 5th note, the V, the dominant, is a G. So if you're in the, let's do the same thing. If you're in the key of F, the tonic is F, and then we go up 5 notes up the F scale, and our 5th note, the dominant, is C. So for reference, our tonic, Roman numeral 1, number 1, dominant, V, number 5. Okay, so if we were to do this with the key of, let's do another key, the key of G, the first note is G, and the 5th note is D. Let's do one more. If we were in the key of E, the tonic is an E, and the dominant is the B. Is this kind of making sense to you? It's important that you understand what the tonic and dominant notes are. Now, the word tonic and dominant, these can refer to individual notes, or they could be referring to a chord. So the G, if we were in the key of G, the tonic note is G, and you could be referring to like the tonic note, which is a G, or the tonic chord, which would be a G chord, okay? The dominant chord in the key of G would be D. The dominant note in the key of G would be D. Make sense? It could be a chord, it could be a single note. So now that we figured out what the dominant chord is, let's figure out what it means when we say dominant 7th. It's actually pretty much what it sounds like. The dominant chord would just be the 1, 3, 5. It's just a standard 3-note chord. So if we wanted to play the dominant chord of C, we would end up with a G chord. A G chord would be the G, and then the 3rd note would be a B, and then the 5th note would be a D. In order to make this a dominant 7th, we just add the 7th note of the scale. But we don't stop there. It's not just the 7th note of the scale. The 7th note of a G scale is F sharp. That would actually be what we call a major 7 chord, but we just want a 7 chord. And the way we do that is by adding a lowered 7th, okay? So if we're doing the, how about if we were doing the dominant 7th chord of C? Oh, we just did that. How about if we, sorry, what I meant to say, how about if we do the dominant 7th chord of F? Okay, so we want the 1, the 3, the 5, and then the lowered 7th note. So if we're in the dominant 7th chord of F, it's not an F7 chord. We got to go up to the dominant first. What's 5 notes up from F? It's a C. So we end up with a C, an E, a G. Basically a C chord, and then the lowered 7th, which is a B flat. Okay, let's do one more. If we want to figure out the dominant 7th of D, I'm going to get these numbers ready. 1, 3, 5, lowered 7. It's not a D7 chord. We got to go to the dominant. So what's the dominant note of D, the key of D? We go up 5, D, E, F, G, A. We end up on an A. So A, C sharp, because there's a C sharp and an A scale. E, and then a lowered 7 would be a G, natural, because in the scale there's a G sharp, but we're lowering it so it's a natural. If you don't have all of these scales memorized, you could always be like referring to an online scale sheet. Another thing that you can do is instead of thinking about this in terms of scales, you could think about this in terms of whole steps and half steps, and that's another way to do it. Here's our formula for a dominant 7th chord, the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th note of a scale. If we figure out the distance between these notes, then we don't even have to know the scale. So for example, the distance between the 1st and the 3rd note is 4 half steps, and then the 3rd and 5th note is 3 half steps, And then between the 5th and the 7th note is another 3 half steps. So if we're trying to figure out a C7 chord, we would start at C. We would go up 4 half steps, which gets us to E. We go up 3 half steps, which gets us to G. And then we go up 3 more half steps, which gets us to B flat. And this will work with any 7 chord. So you can think of it, it's a little easier to think of it in the half step way, but it also helps to have a little bit of scale knowledge as well. Like triads, there are 2 ways to play dominant 7th chords. You can play them solid and broken. Solid, broken. So for both types of chords at a grade 5 level, you're going to be expected to play hand separate 1 octave. Let's look at how to do solid in the right hand and then left hand in turn. So let's assume you're doing the dominant 7th of F, which is going to be up 5 notes. F, 1, 2, 3, 4, is a 5th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's going to be a C7 chord. Here's how you would do it. Solid. And that's up 1 octave, so we start going back down. Now you'll see what I'm doing when I'm playing these chords. Again, like you'll notice that I'm not using my pinky on, I don't think any of these configurations. And again, keep your fingering consistent, but you don't need to copy exactly the fingering I'm doing. Just try to keep your thumb and pinky away from the black keys. So I do end up using my pinky here because I find the 1, 2, 3, 5 shape to be really comfortable. It's just when we get to the black keys. Actually, this one, your thumb here is okay. Maybe I need to amend my rules a little bit. Maybe I need to amend, maybe just no pinky. Maybe the thumb is a little bit easier to do. Let's take a look at it in the left hand as well. Yeah, because you'll see in the left hand I'm doing my thumb with the same note. But I'm avoiding my pinky. The thumb is an okay one to use too, I'm noticing, because you can rotate your wrist a little bit, whereas you don't usually have the same like wrist rotating. Like your thumb is just quite a bit more flexible than the pinky, so it gives you a little bit more movement. I can show you that one more. Let's do one more. Let's do the dominant 7th of C, which is G. So I'll play down here. Now you'll notice when I'm playing through those, I'm using my pinky with almost all of them, because there's no black keys to get in my way that time. And in the left hand, same idea. And again, one thing that I really watch for when I don't know why I said again, because I haven't even told you that, but one thing that I watch for with solid chords is you want all the notes to press together. You don't want the bajangle jangle effect. So try to keep them really clean. You want them to all simultaneously sound. Okay, so let's look at how you would do those broken. Let's do the dominant 7th of G. So that would be up 5 to the dominant, a D7 chord. Here we go. Just like the exact same thing. I find it to be a little bit more difficult, but some people find them to be easier than solid. It just, I think, depends on what your technique level is. And then in the left hand, again, you'll notice I'm avoiding my pinky on those black keys. One thing that I was taught for dominant 7th fingering when you're doing broken, and this helps me a lot, is to just alternate my fingers. Usually I'll go pinky 4, so like 5, 4, 5, 4, 5. And then on the way down, it's the same idea. 5, and then 4, and then 5. And that alternating, when you start speeding up, well, that was very good. But when I'm speeding up, I find that that alternating pattern is easy for me to remember, and I just tend to play it better. And that's all there is to it when it comes to playing dominant 7ths. Hopefully it's not as difficult as you thought it would be. Again, just give your hands a little bit of time to get used to the configurations. You will adapt to 4-note chords sooner than you think. I always see it in my studio where like the first week, they're like, just the fingers don't do what they're supposed to do. But within a couple weeks of practice, they usually start coming together quite nicely. So have fun with that, and I will catch you in the next video. And today we are going to talk about